And that's kind of what the last segment is a little bit about, where I start to engage with it on a more personal level. And speaking of like the Esther kind of courage, I realize the ways in which this whole conversation scares the mess out of me and challenges me to not only make sure that I'm hearing from the Lord on the way that he's calling me, but also that like I'm going to be obedient to whatever that is. And so he gets into a bit of that as we talk about my hesitance to kind of really go there. And I don't know if my boss is watching, but consider potentially firing my boss. So, so let's go ahead. Let's watch the segment now. As we've been talking and I've been, following you guys, his podcast is really dope. He mentioned Charles. I'm pretty sure that was Charles, who's the co-host with you on your On the Pond podcast. They have a great little bite-sized, like a weekly podcast. I want to say it's maybe like 10, 20-minute episodes, maybe even shorter than that. I don't know. But they're good. And they tackle different issues related to, entrepreneurship and the mindset shifting and all that stuff. And I've been following a lot of the stuff. I haven't read all the books that we'll talk about in a minute. But what it's doing in me, it's reminding me the vibrant entrepreneurial spirit that the Lord has put in me that I've struggled unleashing over the years. And I've, in the past maybe 3 or 4 years, I've been putting it to work in regards to, unique forms of ministry and starting things in that regard. But just recently, the Lord's been, I think, pricking me in regards to starting an actual business and not just a ministry. And so I've been tiptoeing with that. So when you talked about Charles and Charles talking about, I need to help me start this business. And you told him, you need to fire your boss. Like straight up. I was like I couldn't breathe for a minute because that anxiety of like, I got kids and because I you get it. So I believe that this is a part of the Lord getting me ready for that. So I might be where Charles was when y'all had that first call.
So when you think about income, there's the employment, like you work for somebody, or you have a small business, or you invest, or you're a sole proprietor, right? Or something like that. But when I look in Ecclesiastes, bro, like this is where the scripture comes alive at reforming how we think about ourselves in terms of the labels we subscribe to, whether I'm pastor, whether I'm dad, whether King Solomon says in Ecclesiastes 11:2, bro. He says, create 7 streams and even 8, because you don't know that when the day of disaster is coming. In other words, like you don't know when you're going to have a bad day. And so when I saw that, I just thought, wow, God, like you address even the aspect of wealth building and how wealth opens doors that maybe other people would like overlook and not take seriously, man. We've been able to, like, imagine like we run into issues of when people put things on in the inner city, we always run into issues of social capital, right? The ability to get more done because of the people that and the resources that they had, right? Like put something on like the On the Pond Summit in the middle of the hood, bro. Like it shook the inner city, man.
Wow,
I mean, we're opening up a business center next month, man. And it just keeps unraveling. And I feel like what Paul said, he's like, like when God gives us vision, we only see it in part. And I'm just trying to be faithful to what I see in part.
Yeah. I think that's actually been that's been part of my struggle. Is I feel like I see so much of the things, the possibilities, you know what I mean? I heard you on a podcast, I don't know, a while back. I think it was like sometime in the middle of the height of COVID. And you were talking about like you and the host were like vibing on the fact that you're always coming up with like entrepreneurial ideas and solutions. Like that's really what it is. You're a problem solver,
Yeah.
and you're seeing problems wherever you're going, and so solutions are coming to you, right?
Yeah. Right.
And so like what has been for you a way that you determine okay, this is the one, or this is a one, or is it lowering the stakes on what it looks like to start something? Or because I'll tell you, bro, like I could be starting stuff like every few months, and then I end up having to shut stuff down really quickly, and I feel like I'm a mess sometimes for folks to follow, because I'm like, I'm doing this thing and I'm doing that thing. So help a brother out. Help a brother out.
Well, no, I think what informs this conversation or this question is what Jesus said when he talked about the parable of the talents, right? One had 1 talent, one had 2 talent, one had 5, right? And so I think sometimes people, it's tough to follow 5 talent people, because we can't put them in a 1 talent bucket, right?
Yeah.
An entrepreneur. I'm not just author. I'm not, right. And the language God's been giving me is if you're gonna have true revival, it's because you have a renaissance. And like we're like part of a kingdom renaissance right now, where it's okay to not be confined to 4 walls in the church. It's okay to explore your entrepreneurial imagination. It's okay to think about the possibility of disrupting a market so that missions can find its home in that culture. Like that's okay that kids don't want to go to school. Maybe they do need to get a GED or online learning so that they can be the social influencers that God's called them to be. And I think the moment we, like James would say at the first church council, let's not make it hard for people to get in. And I think we've been conditioned to like, you know what I mean? I'm not saying wisdom isn't important, timing, planning, proper planning, discretion, strategy, like all those things matter. Yeah. But man, like I'm 39 and I'm like, man, time is precious and I can't get it back, and I'm going to be accountable for how I managed my time.
Yeah. That is good stuff, man. And so speaking of managing your time, I got like 1 or 2 questions, and then we'll call it. You've done a lot of work in regards to entrepreneurship, and you wrote a book called Side Hustle Pastor. Y'all, that's one of the many books this brother has written. Let me show y'all real quick here. For those of you who are listening, check it out on the YouTube. You can go to pastorfury.com/videos, and you can see what I'm showing right here. If you go to his website, myronpierce.com, check out his books. The brother's written some things. Like he's got side hustle pastor, digital ministry, pastoring in a pandemic, outrageous, exceeding the limits of usual, and more and more and more. So I want to ask you, also related to time management, brother, like how do you, and I know it's not an easy answer, but like how do you find the time to, you know, be the family man, to be the you know, leader within your church that you are, to you know, play the role within however many businesses you got a hand in. I don't even want to count those, as well as to write books. You know, how does that work for you on a practical level?
The welterweight champion of the world lives in Omaha, Nebraska, where I'm from. He grew up in the hood. Real scrappy kind of guy. His name is Bud Crawford, and he's scheduled to fight Spence, and for the title belt. And but Bud Crawford, as famous as he is in our hometown, as much as good work he's done in our community, there's somebody that a lot of people don't know, and it's his trainer, Mac. And I use the boxing analogy that they're great fighters, you know, who are champions of the world. but not everybody knows the corner man.
Yeah.
So I manage my time based on the corner man philosophy, right? I don't have to shine because I want to build up 4 generations of light and not just my own light.
So good, so good. I love I always want to like vibe with the last thing he said, but there's so many things that he said that were good.
Yeah.
But that last bit was for me in two parts, in regards to the corner man. And y'all don't know this, but Jariel has very, very quickly become my corner man. Sorry for the misgendering, but she's one of those. If someone were to ask me how I'm doing any of the stuff that I'm doing right now, I gotta point back to Jariel. She's actually behind the scenes pushing a whole lot of buttons, making a whole lot of things happen. So thank you, Jariel, for that. And the other part was how he said, I don't know exactly what he said, but what it did in me was the reminding me about the legacy and the long-standing nature of what we're trying to build versus, just some fly-by-night thing, and knowing that you can't do it alone, So that was just super encouraging. But he said a lot in there. So was there anything either that or related to other stuff that he said that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I do like what he said about being the corner man, because I feel like I've years and years like, God, what is my purpose? But I think I am a corner man. And now I think once I agreed with the Lord on what he was calling me to do and just was fine with that, content in that, I do shine in that. I love being behind the scenes, making things happen. I don't want to be at the front. Although I'm on the
I know you are here. And you do a fine job of it. But you said something that was so important though. When you agreed with that.
Oh, because
once you understood that and you agreed with that.
Yeah, I didn't agree with it for a while because it's not that I wanted to be front and center, but I think sometimes in the corner, it's like you're doing all these things to making stuff happen, but no one ever says anything, or no one ever is like, oh, thank you. Without that wouldn't have happened. It's just like a forgotten area. But I'm fine with that. Now I'm fine.
So much of the culture too tries to push everybody to the front, right?
Yes.
Like, so it's like all the attention's there. This is where they encourage everybody to go do this. But you're like, but what if I'm actually not meant to do that, and I'm meant to do this?
Yes. I also liked how he talked about how sometimes kids don't need to go to school, and I do think there is a lot of pressure on people to finish high school and then go to college, get a degree, and then all these doors are going to open up for you. But that's not meant for everybody. And I think that should be okay, because everyone has a purpose, and it may just not be that. And that may not be their path. And I think once we start taking that pressure off of people, especially kids, I mean, they can shine in ways that you never even known were possible. But I think it's just like, no, you got to do this, you got to do that.
And especially nowadays, like, I think that is even more true now than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Oh, for sure.
The standard, like 20 years ago, the educational model, like you basically had to go to some degree of either trade school or college or something in order to really be equipped to do something of significance in this world. But now, I mean, my daughter's a prime example. She wants to do video editing and, like, the segments and things that we've shown, but she doesn't necessarily have to go through school the normative way. Like, she's already the level. If she learned nothing right now, she can make money like in a real way, if she learned nothing else right now, she's better at video editing than most people are. So it's like, there's so many, and it's not just because she just figured it out. It's because she's been doing her own version of learning and YouTube and all these online tutorials and trial and error. And so I think that's a bold thing to say, because that goes very much against, especially in the Black community, from my understandings of the your way out is college. And, you're like that, at least in my family. It was like, no, you going to college. Like, it wasn't even a conversation, and I don't regret it, but like, it's not necessarily the path for everybody. So I think that was a good thing to say. And like, even especially as you're talking about people who are like trying to get out there and have significant impact in a real way in their communities, maybe college isn't going to be the way for them to do that. Like, there's the school of hard knocks that'll teach you a whole lot. So, oh man, this has been a great episode, an epic episode. I mean, we're 8 minutes shy of 2 hours on this conversation. Any other last thoughts? Well, actually, before you say that, I do want you guys to know, go ahead and check Myron's thing out over at On the Pond. Actually, if you go to On the Pond Network, let's see, onthepondnetwork.com. You can be a part of their summit for next year. You can find out more about the resources that they have, especially things related to entrepreneurship, even get some of the apparel, which is super dope. So I would encourage you guys to check that stuff out. And if you want to hear the full version of that interview, you can check that out over at freedomstorymedia.com when that gets out. Or you can go over to our YouTube, Freedom Story Media's YouTube. And you'll also hear that full thing on the Freedom Stories podcast, which you can check out at freedomstorymedia.com. And if you've already subscribed to the show here, that will be showing up right here next weekend at 10 a.m. We're going to have the full-length episode of that as well. And I think, do you have any final thoughts here before I kind of close it down?
Oh, just another great show.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, we have a lot of fun here, you guys.
Yeah.
And we want to, as always, make sure that we encourage you guys to, go ahead, subscribe, share it with somebody you think would really be blessed by it. And I want to give a shout out to, I say it like it's somebody else, but it's actually our company, Freedom Story Media, that is the sponsor of the show. Freedom Story Media exists for small businesses and nonprofit leaders who don't either have maybe the time, the talent, or the top dollar to create compelling media needed to help grow their business organization. If that's you, let Freedom Story Media help by creating quality video, websites, and graphics at a very affordable price so that you can experience freedom in life and in business. And having said that, I think that's a wrap on season 3, episode 3.
Yes.
Yes. You guys, as you can tell, we have a lot of fun doing this, and we hope to see you guys back here in 2 weeks, where we're going to have a nice interview with none other than George Moore Jr., who is a leader in Waukegan of an organization called Legacy Reentry that works with people coming out of prison, helps them get reintegrated. So it's like this theme going on here of law enforcement and prison and ministries. We're going to keep that going next week. And, having said that, we'll see y'all in a couple of weeks. Not next week, in 2 weeks. Yeah. All right.
Yes. All right. Bye.